Hey, how are you doing, girl? It's Miguel, your dad. So I am making this video on the 28th of December, 2018. I figured I'd take some time out and sit with you and discuss what's been on my mind lately, what's important to me. They're making adjustments here little by little. Um, what's going on with me and what's important in my life right now. Um, One of the most interesting changes that's happening to me right now is I am really focused on cooking, just loving cooking right now. In fact, this morning I made another breakfast pizza, and I think I've already committed to having breakfast pizza on a regular basis. I am really going through a kind of renaissance right now when it comes to producing food. And it's just blowing me away. I am so pleased with my new skills and developing them and just becoming a more versatile in the kitchen, more useful in the kitchen, developing ways of behaving in the kitchen. I'm exercising more care. I'm doing my dishes more often. In fact, one of the rules that I've made for myself is that before I even start making something or preparing something in the kitchen, the first step is to do the dishes if they haven't been done before. And the reason is quite clear because if I want to use a tool that's dirty, it really slows down the food making process if I have to take that tool and clean it before I use it. In fact, I ran into that problem this morning. I had a few dirty dishes that I was just setting aside just prior to making my pizza. And it turned out I needed 2 or 3 tools that were dirty. A few measuring cups. I think there was a knife or something I needed. And some kind of stirring thing. And man, it really slowed me down cleaning that stuff up. And so I learned my lesson. I'm learning a lot of lessons in the kitchen now. The kitchen is really a great place to learn how to live one's life, I think. While I'm in the kitchen and producing food, I'm recognizing something I think essential about what it is to be alive. And the lesson is this. It's that life and relationships take positive energy in order to be successful at it. There's this positive, organizing, non-judgmental energy. It's a creative, positive, constructive energy that must always be engaged in order for things to work out. There's something about energy, and particularly when it comes to relationships. A person can be very skilled in a relationship, say having excellent communication skills, excellent problem solving skills, but if they don't have the energy to take creative, constructive action, say like doing the dishes or cleaning the toilet or cleaning the car or doing the laundry, then there really is no hope. There is no hope for the relationship. I know. It's kind of funny. I think there are 2 main components, and the most important component of, say, positive, healthy relationships is just taking positive constructive action to develop and nurture the relationship frequently. It's sort of about not getting lazy in a relationship. You know, you know, it's kind of funny too, because I think when it comes to relationships, there's always this unspoken rule that people only want to give about as much as they get, or they want to get as much as they give. And, I'm recognizing that that's really not true of healthy relationships at all. There is no parity, there is no equality. I think that a relationship is only healthy when both people are giving 80% to the relationship. Because the fact is that in a relationship, I think that it's very unlikely that a 50-50 arrangement can work. I know it seems like it makes sense that 50-50 can work, but what happens is that I think what happens is that a person's partner might put forth large amounts of energy that doesn't get noticed by the other partner. There's also a lack of appreciation. And that is just a fact. I think that's just a fact in relationships, that they're at a moment, and I think the moment arrives relatively quickly, in that there's just a lack of appreciation. And I think it happens very quickly, like within weeks. It's just it's so subtle, and it might be subtle in how it changes over time. But I think that there is just a continual reduction in appreciation of the other person over time. That's why we have things like 4-year relationships and the 7-year itch, and having difficulty with relationships lasting over 10 years and things like that. The human brain just adapts to the other person, and what that means is what the other person does and says over time fails to be interpreted as something special by your partner. And so, you sort of have to, if you want a relationship to survive, it's really about making contributions, positive, constructive contributions regularly, and doing it 80% of the time. That is providing 80% of the energy. And if both partners can do that, then maybe the relationship will survive. But I don't think this 50-50 arrangement is even possible for working. So what that means is that ultimately, when it comes to relationship, and even just to life, because life is that way, life requires lots of work, organization. There's logistics about getting from point A to point B. Logistics when it comes to cleaning your room and cleaning the house and cleaning the bathroom, and managing your finances and paying the bills. And, there's really just a lot of energy expenditure in living a normal life. And somehow what needs to happen, I think, is that a person needs to just appreciate the energy put forward, the energy invested in life, and the energy invested in relationships for its own sake. There's got to be a kind of enjoyment of the process of logistics for its own sake, as a way to sort of survive this thing called life and survive this thing called relationships. I'm really thinking that that's much of that pretty much solves the problem. One group of people that really inspires me, and it relates to lives well lived, are the Quakers. I have a real affinity for like the Protestant work ethic as it relates to the Quakers. What I've seen in the films I've seen, their constant labor, this idea that idle hands are the devil's workshop and things like that. There is virtue in it. And I can imagine that relationships can thrive if you're continually putting, particularly continually energizing relationships with benefits to the other person, and even benefits to your own life. And I've also noticed that there are probably that what's kind of interesting is that when you're weak in an area of, say, contributing positive energy to it, say the disorganization of your closet, or the disorganization of your desktop computer, or maybe the disorganization of a certain cabinet inside of your home, or a pile of papers on your bedstand, on your bedside table. It's those sort of clusters of chaos which is where the problems can begin. Um, you know, and I think projects and skills like cooking in the kitchen and maybe cleaning and being productive for its own sake, cleaning and organizing and being productive for its own sake, can lead, and in fact may be the only avenue toward living a fully fulfilled life. And what that means is that people really in general have to derive joy out of expending that kind of energy, that kind of constructive energy. In fact, wouldn't it be wonderful if people could gain sustenance, maybe become even more energized at the thought of putting in effort to organize and produce things in their lives? Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about right now. I'm thinking about what makes a life well lived. And one thing I'm noticing here, say, what all this time that I'm spending in the kitchen, is that my quality of life is improving. It's improving in ways that the quality of life, my quality of life, hasn't seen in a long, long time. That is, the quality of the food I'm eating is improving. Maybe not the nutrient quality, because really I ate quite well over the years, and I did so very simply. I would eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, single fruits, single vegetables, one at a time, not combining them, say, in kind of recipes. I wouldn't necessarily mix the food together. It would be a lot of eating separate things, like an apple or a banana or grapes or a bowl of cherries, or a salad. It would be very simple constructions of food. But now, with me spending more time in the kitchen, my food projects are getting a lot more complex. They involve things like oil and baking soda and just foods that I hadn't really incorporated before. And it's true, a lot of these foods are processed foods. I understand it. But I think what's happening is, and the foods, of course, are more energy dense in general. But I really am getting a sense that my quality of life is improving. I think what I can do is I can incorporate more micronutrient foods into these cooked foods that I'm preparing. For example, pizza. This morning, my pizza consisted of a cauliflower topping, some soy sausage, and what else was it? I think it was onions. Anyway, and of course there was some soy cheese as well. And I really loved it. I loved the pizza that I produced. And in the last 3 days, I've had breakfast pizza twice. And one thing I found about the breakfast pizza that I make is that the pizzas they're very low calories compared to pizzas that I get from fast food restaurants. So I think probably the soy fake meat and the very vegetable heavy toppings has a lot to do with that. And that's wonderful. So it's so great because these pizzas are coming out of my own kitchen. And I think they're coming forward in a way that's very economical for me. And I'm certainly not paying $10 for a pizza. I think realistically, I might be just paying $3 a pizza. I mean, a third of the price. I'm getting these wonderful pizzas, and not only do they taste great, not only are they inexpensive from a dollar standpoint, but they also are very low calorie. These are essentially vegetable pizzas with very little oil, and they certainly don't have the saturated fat and oils and even salt of regular cheeses. So, I'm really loving cooking in the kitchen. It's hitting all the right spots. It's raising the quality of my life, and it's very easy on the pocketbook. It's extremely convenient because these are foods that I'm making in my own kitchen. I'm developing lifelong skills of, cutting and slicing food, using my oven, using the stovetop. And, I feel really good about it. So maybe I'm just getting to a place that other people have been for ages. And I accept that that's probably what's happening. But I am so pleased about where I am right now. I do feel like a Renaissance man of sorts, that I really am beginning to appreciate spending a lot of time in the kitchen, hours upon hours in the kitchen, and just enjoying the process. Now, spending hours and hours in the kitchen does sometimes mean that your feet get a little sore or your back gets a little sore, but you know what? So be it. The temporary soreness is definitely worth the increase in quality of life. And not only that, I'm anticipating that not only my life can be improved, but other lives can be improved. I can prepare foods and then offer them as gifts to other people. For example, I just made a lot of brownies. I'm not going to be able to eat all those brownies. So one of my natural inclination is I've got to give some of these brownies away. I've got to offload or unload these brownies, that's for sure. And it's taken me 2 or 3 days to go through a cauliflower and cheese pie that I made. Basically a vegetable pie. And, I can whip up a vegetable pie in an hour's time, no problem. And what that means is that I could possibly offer vegetable pies as gifts to other people. I made some banana bread the other day, and it's going to be a while for me to consume the entire banana bread. Definitely, I think loaves of bread I can use as gifts. So already we've got pizzas, pies, breads that I can provide as gifts to others, while sort of enhancing the newness of some of these foods that I'm creating. Basically, I want to eat a variety of foods, and as a single person, the only way that I can keep a variety of food sort of coming in and out the door is if I give some of it away. It's almost a necessity. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about what's going on in my life right now. This project of spending more time in the kitchen and cooking is really paying off serious dividends in terms of my quality of life. The food that I'm eating is much more enjoyable. My meals are passing quickly. I always have something to eat because I have food or leftovers in the refrigerator. And then if I want, I can produce something entirely new, something brand new. And that's something brand new. It might only take a quick jaunt to the grocery store. And when I return, I can throw it together and have something ready to eat in an hour. So it really is pretty phenomenal. I'm just really blown away at the power of spending time in the kitchen. I've I've sort of known in the back of my mind how important cooking is, but it's never really expressed itself in my life the way it is doing right now. And I'm getting a lot of creative inspiration and energy from doing all the cooking that I'm doing. And so it's really paying me back in spades. I'm really, I don't know, I'm just loving it. I'm loving all the possibilities in terms of improving my own life and improving the lives of others through gift giving. And so I don't know, that's where I am. I'm really in a place of gratitude right now. So thankful that I've found this, um, and that I'm excited and inspired and energized by the whole thing. So that's where I am on this right now. And in fact, here is my recipes. Now I've just got them in this blue file folder. There they are. I printed them out, and until I figure out a better way, um, this is how I'm going to be storing my recipes. And as you can see, here's my vegetable bake, and then here's the recipe for pizza, and this is a recipe for banana bread. I just get these recipes off the internet. Now I do have a couple of. I've got a book arriving from Amazon in the next couple of days. It'll be more recipes. So anyway, it's so neat for me to just start exploring this new aspect of my life. So let's see, what else is going on with me? Well, I'm planning to go to Six Flags Magic Mountain tomorrow. I'm anticipating that it's going to be fairly cold. I don't know if you noticed, Am, but it was freezing this morning. In Lompoc, I checked the weather, and the weather was it's like 39 degrees outside, which is really cold for this area. 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And what that tells me is that tomorrow, and I've already checked the weather using Google Home, what it's going to be like in Valencia, California, and Los Angeles, or Hollywood, California. And it's going to be awful cold. I think I'm definitely going to be wearing a jacket, a sweater, a hat, and also probably thermal underwear just to keep myself comfortable and warm. I might even consider wearing double socks to keep myself nice and toasty warm while I'm walking around the amusement park. I wonder how things like cool weather will change things, like the length of the lines for the roller coasters. I have a feeling that they're going to be rather short, and so that's going to be really good news. I'll be able to, I guess, hop on the rides a lot. So I'm going to be thoroughly shooken up tomorrow by the end of the day. I'll be shooken up in terms of all the shaking related to riding roller coasters all day. Yeah. Um, you know, I was talking to you the other day about how, all the things that I really have been enjoying lately, like roller coasters and eating chocolate and dancing and music and education and exercise, all the things that really energize me and that I'm passionate about right now. And I was thinking that one thing I could touch on was my love for chocolate. Now, I always love chocolate, but here's the thing. I've recognized that chocolate is a source of a lot of calories. It's very calorific. It's a very condensed calorie source, and one needs to approach high calorie foods cautiously. For example, one food that I know that is very high calorie is Oreos. Now, I love Oreos. Oreos are great. the dark cookie crunch and the the nougat inside or whatever that is, the cream inside. It's great. I could literally eat 10 Oreo cookies, no problems. But if you checked the calorie content on those Oreos, I think you might be blown away. I know I was blown away when I found out. There are a ton of calories in Oreos. And how rapidly I can eat Oreos just boggles the mind. They're so good. I really enjoy eating Oreos all the time. And I enjoy dipping them in milk. And there's so many ways to eat Oreos. They're so good. Which, by the way, are a vegan food, which means they're acceptable for me. They've got no dairy or meat or eggs in them. So anyway, I love Oreos. But as a rule, I stay away from Oreos. I just don't eat them. And even when I get extra, maybe I see a spare Oreo here or there, I generally won't eat it because they are so energy dense. So energy dense that it's just not worth it for me to incorporate them into my diet, because I end up just having one or two cookies, and in exchange, I could probably have like 6 or 7 salads. So maybe once in a while I'd have a single Oreo cookie, or maybe 2, but any more than that would be just too indulgent. If I wanted to maintain my weight. So anyway, but what I'm finding is that the food that I'm making that's got cocoa powder in it is very low calorie. I could even add, instead of regular granulated sugar to the desserts, I can put Splenda in the dessert and really knock down the calories. And what that means is that I can eat chocolate more often, because it turns out that cocoa powder doesn't have a lot of calories. For cocoa powder, like 5 grams of cocoa powder delivers only 10 calories, which is some calories, but it's not a lot of calories. And especially not for how powerfully flavored cocoa is. And that's great. That's great news. That means I can add chocolate to almost anything I prepare. I can add chocolate to banana bread, or, I could make hot cocoa, or I could make ice cream shakes or something like that. Smoothies, add some cocoa powder. Cocoa powder doesn't have a lot of calories. And so anyway, right now I'm kind of excited about that. I'm excited about integrating my love of chocolate with my interest in spending time in the kitchen. So that in itself is exciting for me, because I love chocolate. And what that means is I get to stay away from chocolate just a little bit less. It sort of means that I get to pursue my interest in chocolate. Whereas before, I felt like I really had to avoid it, just so that I didn't do anything unusual in terms of my diet. So anyway, I'm really pleased about all that. I mean, so many good things are coming to me over this vacation period that I'm in. I've really buckled down and made some changes to make my life more efficient and make it get better. And all the results are paying off. All these efforts are really paying off. I'm finding real results. I'm waking up 30 minutes earlier in the morning at 4 a.m. in the morning, and then I'm reading for 30 minutes every day. I go to the gym on a regular basis. I'm now eating more chocolate because I'm spending time in the kitchen, and all those foods that I used to crave, I can actually eat now, because I can control the calories, because I'm the one who's preparing the food. I can use low-calorie substitutes to pull together a dish or some kind of food preparation, just that makes sense, something that I can manage, and won't be any trouble. So I don't know. I'm really excited about the chocolate. I'm excited about the cooking. And I'm also excited about going to amusement parks and seeing people and visiting with them. And I don't know, going on roller coasters, which I really enjoy, going on long walks in the sunlight. Yeah, I'm having a blast. And what's great too is all this is not costing a lot of money. Now, it might appear initially that it's costing a lot of money, but it really doesn't. When everything is factored in, um, it's not that costly. These annual passes are really inexpensive. All you need to do is go to an amusement park twice, and generally the annual pass will pay for itself. I mean, it's a phenomenal deal. So anyway, life is good right now. I'm really enjoying single life, and and I love spending my time and energy in ways that I enjoy spending my time and energy in. I enjoy having the freedom and autonomy that I do. I feel secure in how I live my life, and it's just a wonderful thing. So maybe we can start a new segment. Let's start a question and answer period. And to do that, I've got my Kindle ebook here, and we can start rifling through some questions and see how that goes. All right. Question number 101. Are you a hugger or a non-hugger, and why? All right. Well, I'm a hugger. I like to hug other people, but here's the thing. I am also very aware of whether other people are huggers. The people who I'm interested in hugging, I am taking their temperatures before I make an offer to hug. I am exquisitely aware of the fact that there are many other people who are not huggers. And there are some who are anti-huggers, and not just non-huggers, but anti-huggers. And I think I pride myself on at least my willingness to step back and maybe ask if people are willing to give me a hug. And I can make that request verbally or non-verbally. And I would say that for me anyway, because consent is so important to me, I think it's pretty much a 50. There's always a question that I'm posing, and I can pose that question verbally or non-verbally. And it turns out, I think my track record has basically been 50% non-verbal, 50% verbal requests. Yeah, I think that's probably a reasonable estimate. So yeah, I tend to be a hugger. And one aspect of that is that hugging, while important for me, borders on just a regular greeting. It's just a standard greeting. It's not something that's really important to me. It's an act that I think sort of reinforces the positivity and intimacy in a relationship, any relationship at all, a friendship, an acquaintance, relative relationship. So that's good. It's not something that I have to have. It's sort of like shaking someone's hand. I offer to shake people's hands verbally or non-verbally. I might go shake or fist bump or something like that. But I don't have to have a shake in order to be satisfied. That is, I don't have to shake someone else's hand necessarily. So, I let other people respect in terms of, whether they want to participate in the action or not. Yeah. So, next question. What drives you crazy? Well, let me state that nothing drives me crazy. Um, and here's the fact: things in your external world, there's nothing in a person's external world that can drive a person crazy. Um, what 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 makes a person emotionally affected by the external world are the beliefs that they have about the external world. It's the beliefs that sort of mediate between the self and the external world. And so, what I'm talking about is how meaning is important. So, are there ideas that might drive me crazy? Well, yeah, if I dwelt on those ideas, yeah. But there's nothing inherent about the external world that I think might drive a person crazy. A person can always come up with some set of beliefs that allow them to live their lives in a very healthy way, no matter what the external circumstances. I think it's just a result of, you can see human evolution. You know, hundreds of years ago, people lived in caves. They didn't have running water, they had to go fetch water. They didn't have food that showed up at their homes, um, like we have like takeout food today, or delivery food today. Um, Things were a lot harder in the past, and yet human beings survived, and they survived intact. You know, they didn't all get driven crazy. In fact, even today, there is less reason to be driven crazy than I think there ever has been. Now, of course, there are more people being driven crazy today because it's entirely possible to submit or to consider beliefs that might drive a regular person crazy. I think religion is probably any of those beliefs could easily drive a person crazy, in my view. Um, any kind of ideas where the supernatural has any kind of validity, I think can be crazy making. Absolutely. I really appreciate real life, regular reality where things are predictable and reliable. They are operating according to the laws of physics and chemistry and biology. And that's the bedrock. That's the confidence and surety, and that's where it comes from, about how the world works. What I think is crazy making are these ideas of the supernatural and witchcraft, and these ideas, these fantastic ideas, these mythological ideas. They're often surrounded by so many contradictions and generalizations that it's often hard to grasp at times why one thing would follow another thing. So I guess, so my answer to that question, my quick answer, is that there is nothing in the world that drives me crazy. And that I also believe that it is only one's beliefs that can drive one crazy, not one's external world. Okay, next question. Question number 103. Are you serious minded or a jokester, and why? So, when I was a kid, I used to be more of a jokester. For me, survival was about um, having fun and yeah, um, yeah, and telling jokes. But as I grew older, I tend to be more serious minded. And why is that? I think it's just through force of habit. Um, I think also it can get out of control. The seriousness, I think, can be a disease of sorts. And I think it's important to lighten up and to release a lot of these tightly held ideas. In fact, I think it really makes sense to hold a lot of ideas lightly. I think that's a really good strategy for being comfortable in life and sort of appreciating and enjoying it. Because here's the thing, things are so, as humans, we are so prone to, well, first of all, death. Um, it's just really easy to take things too seriously as a human being. You know, the fact is, everyone just does the best that they can do. There's really no overarching set of objective rules that people need to follow. And because of that, because the universe is neutral, nature is morally neutral. Because of that, um, any really dogmatic belief system is has no solid foundation. It's essentially the subjectivity of life. And over time, as I've gotten older, I've begun to recognize that truth more and more, and on more and more deep levels. And what that means is it translates into at least the possibility, the hope of having a life that's not terribly serious. And that's a relief. It is a complete relief. It's a total relief. Anyway, so I'm more of a serious-minded person now. I used to be more of a jokester, but who knows? Maybe as I grow older, I'll become less and less serious-minded, and I can only hope that will be the case. I think it would be good. It's nice to have some levity. Question number 104. Are you more likely to avoid conflict or engage in it head on, and why? So I tend to be a conflict avoider. Um, there's a part of me that seems to think that things will work themselves out on their own. Or if they don't work themselves out on their own, with persistent effort, pinging about the question on a regular basis, I think that can solve a problem all by itself. It's really just about sort of responsible engagement. I think there's a lot of people who really dive headlong into problems, and I think that is a problem. Sometimes it feeds a lot of negative energy when people do that. They recognize that something's wrong and they get really serious about it and they try to solve the problem. And sometimes their efforts make the problem worse. And I am keenly aware of that possibility for myself. Sometimes what creates problems is our perspective alone, right? It's our ideas about how life ought to be based on cultural conditioning and what we see on television. And that this is all happening in the backdrop of a neutral universe, and where a value neutral universe where all measures are subjective. And so it refers to this idea that it may be a mistake to get too serious about what goes on in life. And I think that's true. And I would definitely be happy if I had more levity in my life as I grew older. Yeah. Now, having levity in your life doesn't mean that you're not taking positive, constructive action all the time. Mm-hmm. It just means that you're a little bit more accepting when that positive, constructive energy doesn't seem to be flowing. Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. Well, actually, you know what? I'll continue with that question. The question was, are you more likely to avoid conflict or engage in it head on, and why? The why answer I touched on, and it had to do with the subjectivity of reality, and just the subjective nature of reality. As a person who lives their life in this mind of ours. Okay, question number 105. What was the most recent compliment you received and savored? Oh, I wonder if I can remember that. Yeah. So on Christmas, which was December 25th, today is the 28th. So 3 days ago, I received a very nice compliment from a young woman. She suggested that my profession was being a teacher, and she admired my speaking ability. And I really appreciated that. That was really nice. I thought that was very considerate of her to say that, or at least imply that. And, she was referring to my manner and my speech, my nonverbal behavior and my verbal behavior. And it was, I think, a high compliment. And I'm really thankful to her for it. And yeah, I really appreciated it. And I savor it. And even today, 3 days later, I am still savoring that compliment. It was very nice. Question number 106. What's something about yourself that you hope will change, but that probably never will? Okay. Something about me that I hope will change, but probably never will. Well, one aspect of my personality is my focus on personal growth. And there are a lot of aspects to personal growth. And one aspect that I guess I would like to change, but may not likely ever happen, is I think, I was just talking about it, and I think there's this, I don't know, there's this spontaneous naturalness that some people have that I really admire, that I hope to achieve. Spontaneous naturalness. I wonder if there's a better way for me to describe it. There's like this. I kind of wish that I had more emotional intelligence. But you know what? I don't really expect me to reach emotional intelligent nirvana anytime soon. I think I may just be too constricted, too tightly wound for me to reach that enlightened nirvana of full emotional intelligence. Yeah, it's true. And that also goes into social intelligence. I sort of wish I could be supremely socially intelligent, but again, I'm not sure if that is something that I could even accomplish. We'll see. All that takes is practice, right? And so, even if I never accomplish full emotional intelligence or social intelligence, I think I can get awful close to it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I wonder, is there anything else that I have to say? Something that about myself that I hope would change, but probably never will. You know what? One part of my personality is that I think I'm prone to disappointment. I'm kind of prone to dissatisfaction. This is an essential part of my personality. It's part of what keeps me moving forward and making progress. But it's sort of like a deep, inherent mental habit. And even though I hope to one day not be disappointed about the way things turn out, I think it is such an ingrained part of my personality that I will always be disappointed in my own behavior and how I act in the world. Do I think that'll ever change? I just don't think it will. Wouldn't it be great if I could reach a point where I was just fully satisfied with my performance out in the world and um, at home? There must be something about being human that isn't, that creates an attitude of disappointment, at least in my personality. What's great is that I counterbalance this disappointment with hope. That's really the thing that saves me, is that I'm optimistic and idealistic about the future and future outcomes. It is a continual grasping, and it gets me out of the rut. It makes me hopeful, it makes me happy, makes me look forward to the future. Now, I can't explain that either. There's like two aspects to my personality. It's like a hope about the future and then a disappointment about the present and the past. These parts of my personality are so ingrained that I doubt I'll ever be free from them. It's essentially the motor on the motorboat that propels me into the future with the energy that I am propelled. The personality traits are so deep, so foundational, I think so structural in my brain. These pillars of my personality will never be toppled, no matter how much I try. Okay, next question. Question number 107. What's something about yourself that you hope will never change? Well, I think one thing that I hope will never change is my creativity. I think that's when you know you're dead in a certain area, when you can't come up with any new ideas, any new approaches for solving a problem. There's something about being essentially human, which sort of invokes this creativity. And if you lose the creativity, you've basically lost at the game. You've essentially given up. It's that creative drive which offers the hope, right? Yeah. It's a creative drive that offers the hope. It is the resource that one can look to solve problems. Without creativity as a resource, without the ability to take a different approach or a different tack to solve a problem, you're basically done. You're done. That's why I think a sense of wonder and creativity and imagination is so important. It's sort of like a driving force. It's the possibility that, there's time and life and change and things could get better. And without that possibility being recognized, well, you sort of are done before you start. That's just what being a human being is all about. So question number 108, are you a leader or a follower, and how do you know? Well, a lot of this depends on context. It depends also on the amount of experience that I've had in a certain situation. If I've had a lot of experience, I'll tend to be more of a leader. If I've had little experience, I'll tend to be more of a follower. As I've grown older and more experienced, then these leadership roles are more easy for me to step into. And I'm grateful for that. It's nice to get that kind of experience. But I think that when it comes to my personality, sort of my essential personality, I believe that I'm more of a follower and a supporter of others. I've had more experience following others and supporting others than I have being in a leadership role. I've been in a leadership role and I'm quite capable of it. And I think I can pull it off pretty well if I'm paying attention to what's going on around me. And I think I can pull it off better than, say, maybe even the average Joe. Because I tend to be somewhat good at generating new ideas. It's really a person's willingness to generate and express creative ideas about their situation to make improvements and to argue for those improvements that create leaders. It's that gift of a perspective and a willingness to express that perspective that is essential, really just core to being a leader at all. If a person is just content with the status quo, accepting it as is, which in itself is actually quite virtuous, then there may not be a particular drive to take a team in a certain direction. Yeah. So I'm mostly a follower, but depending on context, I can be a leader. And I think I can be a rather effective one, at least a little more effective than average. So next question. Question number 109. Are you more of a rule breaker or a rule keeper, and why? Well, that's a really easy question for me to answer. I am definitely a rule keeper. I like when people play by the rules, and I like when people bring up questions when rules don't seem to apply so that they can be negotiated. I am not a rule breaker. It is rare that I break rules that I'm aware of. I try very hard to follow all the rules. It makes me a good citizen in society. It also makes my life easier. Sometimes it's a lot easier to make personal adjustments to one's external environment than to change one's external environment as it relates to rules. So yeah, definitely a rule keeper. Now, why? Well, I just mentioned it. It's because of ease. It's just easier. And it might be that rules are constraining initially, but what happens, at least for me, is that over time, I begin to adapt to the rule. And then the rule becomes second nature. It becomes natural for me to follow that rule. And it's easy. In fact, sometimes I'm concerned that it might be too easy. Like a human being, my brain adapts to my external environment. And, sometimes I worry that my brain adapts too well, that I become too comfortable in a new situation. And that's something I think I have to guard against on occasion, just because I think I might be over willing to accept an external reality that maybe I ought best not be accepting. It's kind of funny. It's funny, but here it is. The universe is neutral. Actions that happen in it are value neutral actions, and whether it's right or wrong is quite often a subjective evaluation. And what that means is it makes acceptance easier to swallow if you come to life from that perspective. Now, if you're sort of rigid in terms of your understanding of what's true and false and right and wrong, then that is where real pain begins. Yeah, that is where the real pain begins. And yeah. So what's the next question? Would you describe yourself as an extrovert or an introvert? give an example. So I'm both extroverted and introverted. I can turn on extroversion like I turn on a switch. It's very easy for me to do, and as I grow older, extroversion just becomes easier. Introversion also is quite appreciated by me. I enjoy it. I think of myself as a non-shy introvert. So I'm willing to sort of accept alone time, not because I'm afraid of, say, other people or society or my external reality, because I'm shy and I want to hide from them, but just I can be introverted and appreciate sort of like the low energy state of introversion. For me, it's relaxing to be introverted. You know, I in a way, extroversion is exciting. You know, it's stimulating. It's often enjoyable, and there's often learning that takes place. You know, it's a very much an active role that an extrovert plays in his environment, and an introvert is quite often, you know, at least in some respects, passive, but not always. I think the kind of introversion that I engage in can be very active. For example, been spending a lot of time in my kitchen this winter break. It's very active. I've been doing a lot of things. In fact, later on, in fact, maybe even after this video, I intend to go to the grocery store to get some more fixins, some more ingredients for the foods that I'm going to be preparing today and tomorrow. So I've been thinking about making a pie later on today. That's introversion, but it's sort of an active introversion, you know? Well, anyway, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Emily, I just wanted to say thank you very much for clicking that link and participating in this. I suppose it's a monologue from your perspective, but in my view, I think of it more like a dialogue. You know, even though I'm not privy to the thoughts that you're thinking at the moment, I know that you're thinking them. I'm cognizant and aware of that. You are thinking of thoughts and developing opinions and perspectives about who I am. And for me, that is enough to create a dialogue. You know, the fact is that human beings project all of their material on their external reality anyway, and that no two people have ever met because there are barriers, existential barriers between two people. You know, I can only guess what's going on in your mind. And even if we were having a face-to-face conversation, I would still only be guessing about what's going on in your mind. Even though I'd be getting nonverbal and verbal feedback, I would still be making guesses about what you thought about one thing or another. So whether we have conversations in using this technological model or face-to-face, I'm still doing the same thing. It is guessing and verifying about what Emily's thinking. So anyway, thank you for this dialogue. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot about myself in the process, and I hope you might have learned a little bit about me. I'm a little bit curious about how this new setup is working. If this is working out okay, it might make these videos a little bit easier to produce. It's kind of interesting. The more of these videos that I make, the easier it gets for me to make them. You know, I've just become accustomed to what I'm doing, and it becomes easier. Anyway, I want to say that I love you. I love you very much. I love you just the way that you are. There's no need to change for me. I have strong, very high levels of positive regard for you and your autonomy, for your maturity, for your knowledge and understanding. Very high levels of regard. And that regard is positive. I'm just really blown away by my love for you and how expansive it is. I'm so glad that you're happy and healthy in this life and sort of exerting yourself in this world with your energies. I mean, what else could a father ask for? Nothing else. Nothing else. Everything's perfect. So I'll talk to you later, girl. Have a wonderful day. And I'm not going to be talking to you tomorrow because all day tomorrow I'm going to be at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I'll be thinking of you when I'm there. And I will also be hoping that in the future, sometime, I might be able to take you to an amusement park and we can enjoy this experience together and not at a distance. All right? I love you, girl. Bye-bye.